Okay, I have read that the regime under Saddam Hussein in Iraq gave women more freedom and rights than any other regime in the Middle East. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely not. It did not give women more rights than any other regime in the Middle East. I would suggest to you, sir, that, for example, the King of Morocco, along with many women's rights activists, all of them have shown a degree of respect for women's equality insofar as about 4 years ago, they together reformed Sharia law based on the Quran itself. Now, at least on paper, women have full access to divorce, child custody, and alimony. And again, on paper, polygamy is all but abolished. We'll see how that translates, in the real world. What I can say is that today it is not at all clear that women have more rights in Iraq after Saddam is gone than they did beforehand. And NBC Nightly News, to its credit, very recently did a story about how much murder against women is happening by theocrats in the name of Islam within Iraq. And I blogged about it, by the way, and one of the points I made in my blog entry about this is that it is tragic, utterly tragic, that the Bush administration, in the name of liberation, has empowered the theocrats rather than the secularists in Iraq, to the point now where the new constitution of a free and democratic Iraq states expressly that Sharia law is the predominant form of law and that one cannot, in any way, shape, or form, defame Islam. Who decides what is defamatory to Islam? The same, by the way, I'll finish up my answer this way, can be said in Afghanistan. As I speak, there is a 23-year-old journalism student in Afghanistan who is on trial with the penalty being death. Why? Merely for downloading a document analyzing how the Quran treats women's rights. He did not write this document. He did not even distribute it. He downloaded it with the permission of his professors at university. A bunch of mullahs didn't like that. They sued him. They didn't even provide him with a lawyer. And now he was convicted of defaming Islam. This is in Afghanistan. And now, because it is a democratic country, it is going to an appeals court. But the point is that both in Afghanistan and in Iraq, two countries that have been freed by, coalition forces, freedom of expression is at least as much under threat as it was under Saddam's time and, in the case of Afghanistan, under the Taliban's time. So what, in a concrete way, has actually changed? I'm not sure.
You've got the mic.
I'm not sure you answered this before, but the tribal issues of abuses on women, what is the original source of that? If they're believing in the Quran, why are these tribes doing what they're doing against women?
You've asked the very question that I continue to ask. I don't have a rational answer to it. And I'm not sure that there is a rational answer to it. I think you said something very important in your brief question, which is, if they're believing in the Quran, then why do they do this? Well, the question is, do they believe in the Quran? They say that they do, but, once again, interpretation is exactly that. Now, I'm an honest enough, both feminist and Muslim, to say to you that the Quran is not uniformly pro-woman. Certainly, there are verses that, for example, say to women, that you have the right to reject marriage. And should you choose to accept marriage, you are encouraged to draw up a prenuptial contract so that in the event of a major disagreement between husband and wife, your interests as a woman will be as much protected as your husband's interests will be. All of that is nice in theory, and that's what it says in the Quran. But I'm also honest enough to point out that the Quran contains some passages that are very anti-women. It tells men, for example, women are your fields. Go then into your fields and do as you please. Do as you please. Isn't that a recipe for unchecked power? Elsewhere, the Quran tells men that by virtue of spending money to maintain women, they can claim authority over women. Far from being abstruse or theoretical, that verse has made its way into a very specious human rights charter that has been adopted by Muslim countries around the world since 1990. It's called the Cairo Declaration. Article 6.1 says that women and men have equal dignity. Article 6.2 says that only men will be permitted to provide for their families. Now think about it. If only men, under this human rights charter, are to be providing for their families, and the Quran tells men that by providing you can lord it over women, well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist or a social scientist, right? No, but it can take even a journalist to point out that these are the religious underpinnings of a serious power imbalance. So this is exactly why I go back to the point about reinterpretation for a 21st century pluralistic context. I do believe that that is where the key to reconciling Islam with democracy rests.
Early on, I think I heard you say that the secular rule of law, as in a democracy, is supported by the Quran. Did I hear that right?
No, not quite. What I said was that the Quran gives us plenty of room to experiment with different forms of government and governance. And therefore, there are interpretations of the kind that I advance, for example, and that others do too, that would make for secularism to be absolutely allowable under the banner of Islam. But it's in the interpretation. It's not in merely, taking the Quran literally and taking it at face value.
Okay.
Right here.
Good evening.